Hello, Fight Insight fans, viewers, listeners of the Filipino podcasting scene, Princey D, and with me as always is Timmy B. Before we start, be sure to follow and subscribe to us on YouTube, wherever you get your pods, and leave five-star reviews. It just takes a few minutes. It means so much to us. Please also be sure to check out middaysquares.com and use code FightInsight15 to save 15% on your first order. You won't believe how amazing these functional chocolate bars are. On today's episode, we talk to one of Canada's newest and greatest hopes for UFC Gold, discuss fighter pay, and what got us into martial arts, and a whole lot more. Tim, hit it!
Yeah, it's Timmy B, Princey D, Fight Insight, yeah.
Our guest today is a fighter in the UFC's Strawweight division and the former BTC Strawweight champion with a record of 5-1. Her non-stop pressure and aggressive style is always a crowd pleaser, and her bout with Jessica Penne produced a ton of highlights across social media that garnered her a ton of new fans. She makes her highly anticipated return to the cage on October 9th in a trilogy match against Sam Hughes, and we can't wait to watch. Born in Mexico, she now makes Canada her home and represents both countries proudly. From across Canada, from Vancouver, ladies and gentlemen,
Lupita, Loopy Godinez.
Hey, Loopy.
How are you guys? Thanks for having me.
How are you?
I'm really good. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule. I know you're in training for a fight, right?
Yes, correct.
Awesome. We'll get to some of the questions. You made your UFC debut, Loopy. I never knew who you were before, but after that fight, I was posting videos of you power bombing Jessica Penne. It was such a great fight. I was cheering and screaming. How has your life changed after that fight?
For me, I haven't changed that much yet. Just because you are in the UFC, that doesn't mean, you made it. Because for me is you had to, once you are in there, you had to win, then you had to stay there, then you had to become a champion. Then I can say I made it. But
all right.
For now, right now, I'm still in the process. I'm still learning. I'm just still, hitting those bumps on the way. And yeah, I'm just really happy to be here in this position. Honestly, I'm in this unique position that not everyone gets the opportunity to be on. So yeah, it's just really exciting.
Lupia, and I also heard that you got the news that you were going to get matched up with Jessica at Costco. Is it true?
Oh, yeah. I was with my boyfriend, and then my management, Jason is like, yeah, he video called me. He's like, wait, we got it. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, holy shit. That's all I said for like 20 minutes.
That's amazing.
Loopy, was there anything on sale while you were at Costco?
Yeah, I was at Costco.
Was there anything on sale? What aisle were you on when you went there?
I was in the pharmacy.
I
was like, that's my favorite place to go, and getting those news perfect.
Yeah, that's good. Loopy, where do you train, and who do you train with?
Here I train at Titan Center, and here in BC we go this other gym called Revolution, where Viviano Fernandez goes to. So I get to get rounds with him. I get to learn some from Cole Smith. I train a lot with Jamie Horth and a couple other people from my gym. So I like to go to different places, right? To learn, to get different, to see different looks. So that's what I've been doing. Like this for the last 2 weeks. In the past, I was in Mexico training with Alexa Grasso and Tim Grasso, which was really good. They have an amazing striking. I had a blast. All the people there, they're just such a good people.
Yeah, that's amazing. That was going to be my next question, because, in preparation for this interview and getting ready to ask you questions, I was seeing on your social media, you were out in Mexico with Alexa Grasso. Have you been friends with her a long time? Like, do you normally train with her?
No, this is the first time I meet her in person.
And, wow.
Yeah, and honestly, it was like it was so nice. You know, everyone there, they have so much knowledge, and they all like, you know, the coaches, the all the girls, the guys, you know, sharing their knowledge, which it was really good, and I'm really looking forward for my fight.
That's amazing. Alexa Grasso is an incredible striker. I mean, she puts on great shows, but you two somewhat have a very similar style in terms of like your aggression. Like you're a very aggressive fighter. I was watching some of your old fights. Man, to the people that only have seen Loopy in UFC, that is what she does. It's just push forward, push forward. Like it's nonstop with you.
Loopy, and I saw it too. It's nothing but pressure, pressure, pressure. You just don't let off, and you, like your gas tank, it's never empty. It's always full. Like, what's going on? Like, what's in your cereal?
Yeah, like, you know, to be honest, like my last fight with Jessica, I wasn't 100%. No, I didn't say this a lot because, like, I don't know if it matters or no. But first of all, I took the fight in 2 weeks, 2 weeks and a half notice, right?
Yeah.
I was 140 pounds because I had COVID 2 weeks ago, right? Like 2 weeks prior to the fight, right? So for 2 weeks, I was in bed just chilling. I didn't go super sick, but I was sick. I was just at home, and then I was just eating, and you know, I'm this tall, so everything goes to the side. So I was like 140, right? So they're like taking the fight. I was like, of course I'm taking the fight. And then there's like, okay, the next day you had to go to the States for visa stuff, right? Like to speed it up. So I go to the States for like the 2 weeks and a bit that I had to, you know, to go to Vegas. And yeah, it was just like this the whole time, and it was just too much. It was so crazy. And then when the fight came, of course I didn't feel 100%, even though like a lot of people thought I won. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm excited for this fight because now I go like couple months to get ready. My, you know, everything is in slower pace, so I'm enjoying a lot more of the process this time.
Nice. That's
And
great, Loopy.
on top of that, they call you in the middle of you doing your groceries. Like, that's even more added pressure. You couldn't even get your groceries done. You're in the middle of pharmacy, and you give me this bad news, and you gotta lug all this stuff back to your house. So that's extra pressure too. You forgot to mention that. That's a big big job to get through, especially when you're in the middle of doing something, right? So I thought that's something to add to. So
Yeah. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Prince. Loopy, I just want to get to something a little bit serious. In your debut match, the commentators talked about the circumstances that led you coming to Canada. Because when you came out, you were representing both flags. And, you know, anytime we see that, we think, that's so cool that, you know, she was representing Mexico and Canada. But they talked about a funny story about how you and your family came to Canada. Can you share a little bit about that? Okay.
We're 6 people, right? So it's like we're 4 girls, mom and dad. And so some dangerous people, whatever, they're like, okay, we're asking for money, we need this and blah, blah, blah. And then my dad is like, no way. So he just grab us and say, we're going to Disneyland, we're going to go for vacations, grab all your clothes. And then we just go to the airport, and then we hear Vancouver, Canada, because we have a straight flight here. I was like, oh, what the hell is that? So I started to feel kind of itchy, like what's going on. Then when we arrived to Canada, to Vancouver, after 2 days, I was crying. I was like, what's happening, right? This is not Disneyland, clearly.
Yeah.
And then after like the next day or two, it's like, well, we're moving here. We cannot be in Mexico anymore for whatever reasons, all those stuff. So yeah, so we arrived here, and of course, like we had to start from scratch, like, you know, like since learn how to use our skills, like painting, cleaning. Like I started cleaning toilets in a bar. I started like collecting all the cans so I can have some money so I can buy cards to call to my friends in Mexico. My dad had his business in Mexico, which he didn't need to do any like labor work. And then when we come here, obviously here you need to like suck it up and do everything, or you're not gonna eat, right? So yeah, that was, he started, learning how to paint, how to clean cars, and everything from scratch. And he was 40, right? And yeah, slowly, same as my mom, in Mexico we have more you know income, I will say. Like, you have your life there, then you can have those things that we need to do here, someone else over there can do it.
Yeah.
But here, when you're new, and like, you had to, suck it up and pretty much live, like on like down here, and then start building up. And after, a lot of years of working really hard, now I'm in the UFC. My parents have their house, they have cars. My sisters have scholarships for one of the best universities here. One of them represents Canada in wrestling. My other sister got married and have her kids. So like, it's a process, and we're here, and we're still working really hard.
That's amazing, Loopy. It's such a great story.
And Loopy, this is all after a trip to Disneyland.
Yeah, and then I haven't gone there yet.
Yeah, wait, I was going to ask that. Have you gone?
No.
Never?
No, I haven't.
Oh man, you got to get there.
Soon.
Okay.
Guys, and listen, if you have any kids, if you want them to pack their clothes in 2.2 seconds, just say we're going to Disneyland, and it'll be packed in like in record time. I'm telling you that. I remember my parents would say the same thing, and they'd be like, "Oh, man, Disneyland," and then you get there, like, we're going to church. Oh,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was 14 and a bit, almost 15. So you have your life in Mexico, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's really difficult. It's not like you're a little baby and then, or a little kid, and then you're like, whatever happens, I already had like my thing established there. So it was it was hard. It was really hard. But I cried for like a year straight. Like, I was like, what the hell is going on, right? You're a teenager, you're going through all these things. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy, Loopy. Well, we're so glad that, that everything worked out for you and your family, and that now you're representing Canada and Mexico. I just think that's beautiful, when we see those things.
Yeah.
On October 9th, you're fighting Sam Hughes. And I said in the intro that this is a trilogy. People don't know, but you fought her twice as an amateur. First time it was a draw, and then the next time was a unanimous decision win for you. So that means you've spent 30 minutes in the cage with her already. What can we expect when we see you fight Sam Hughes?
Well, all you can expect is a better version of myself. All the fights that you see, that's great. But this one, I'm going to look even better than my other fights. That's all I can say, I'm just going to show up and have fun and do my thing, and everything will line up. And yeah.
All right. That's amazing.
Something that action packed, right? We'll be like, that hasn't changed. That's definitely going to be on the menu.
Oh yeah. That's not changing. Now it's going to be an action, and it's going to be fun. That's for sure.
That's
you
amazing.
You may go out of the cage this time.
Loopy, we go to the fans and we ask them for some questions. So we have a few fan questions before we let you go, if that's okay.
Yeah.
The first one is from @SunnyD. What is the best food to eat in Mexico, and what is the best food to eat in Canada?
Oh, okay. So Canada, Vancouver, sushi. The sushi here is great.
Nice.
In Mexico, seafood also is great because, we have the coast. Well, depends where you go, I guess. Tacos, like all that, Mexican stuff. Yeah, they're really good. But you had to go to the places where, like, they're making the tortilla on your face. That's the best. Like, homemade kind of food, and those little places. That's where to go.
Nice, like the little mom and pop shops, right?
Yeah.
Nice. Next question is from my wife, Erin S2. She asks, "What is your favorite hobby outside of training and fighting?"
Oh, that question is not that cool for me because honestly, I don't have that much. Like, it's just fighting, it's just training, going home. Well, I guess hanging out with my dog and my family, my boyfriend, going for little hikes with my dog. But if I didn't have a dog, I will not go for a hike. I will just stay home. So yeah, because I don't know, I'm always out doing stuff. So all I want to do is be home, chill, relax, take care of my home. Just
All right.
I'm a homebody. I'm gonna say.
No, that's okay. Are you watching a lot of Netflix? Is there a show you could recommend?
No, because I have my dog, as I say, so he keeps me really busy. And
Okay.
I'm a messy cooker. So every time I cook, I leave it and then I come back from training and then I have a job to do in the kitchen. So that's pretty much I do.
Loopy, what dog do you have?
I have a Formosan Monta dog.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's a rescue from Taiwan.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah,
nice.
It's amazing. So when the pandemic started, I always wanted to have a dog, and I told my boyfriend, I want a dog, and he's like, no, you don't have time. But when the pandemic happened, he's like, okay, you can have a dog, we can have a dog, but it has to be a rescue. And then I was looking, find this one, and he's, he has his issues and whatever, but he's great.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And what's his name?
Freddie.
Freddie?
Mm-hmm.
All right, nice.
Freddie's not around right now. I was hoping Freddie would be rocking in between the cameras or something.
Yeah, he's downstairs with another dog.
Okay.
All right. The last question, Loopy, and again, we appreciate it, from Sarah's23. What would you be if you weren't a fighter?
Oh, that's a good question because I don't even know.
So, okay, well then, when did you know you were going to be a fighter? When did you know that was going to be the path for you?
To be honest, since I was a little kid, I wanted to do WWE. Doing people and jumping and all of that stuff. I love it. And then even since I was a little kid, my mom would put me into those pools with balls with the balls. So she would put me there, and then I'll fight the boys and I'll bite them, I'll punch them. I always been like a tomboy, I guess, right?
Okay.
And she will be pregnant, and then the moms will come to her and be like, "Oh, what the hell? Your kid is like a monster." Like I was a little monster, and and I guess since I always had it in me, but I just didn't know it was such a thing as an MMA. I never hear it. Then after years, my mom put me into track. I tried judo, and I love judo. I did really well, right away. I was competing and winning, and it was good. And then I kind of started teenager, and then I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm too cool for that. Moved to Canada. After a few years being here, I met my boyfriend, and then he's like, you're so young. Maybe you should go back to judo, do something, right? So I was okay. I went back to judo. I started training, and then he invited me to go watch the UFC, the fights. And that time, Ronda Rousey was fighting. One of the first. Oh, he's here.
There you go, Freddie.
Well, Freddie's making an appearance. If you're listening on Spotify, you got to check this out. Oh,
wow,
gorgeous.
Beautiful dog.
He's so cute.
There's Freddie.
That's amazing.
It's so heavy. And then what I was saying?
So you went to the UFC event and you saw Ronda Rousey.
We watched the fights at his friend's house, and Ronda Rousey was fighting the night. And then I'm like, I want to do that. And then he's like, if you want to do that, you got to start training hard. So I'm like, okay, perfect. I joined the club where I'm at now, Titan. And then I told him I want to fight. But after seeing me, my coach is like, I don't think you can fight. Like I couldn't strike to save my life. I would go like that. I didn't want to get hit. I was a mess. For 1 year, I was just in the corner, just moving, doing footwork, whatever, doing stuff. No sparring. After 2 years, finally, I was ready to have my first fight, and I did it, and now the story goes.
That's so amazing.
When did you start to realize that, hey, you know what, I can't bite my opponents? When did you start to realize that?
Pretty quick.
That's kind of like a day one lesson, I
Really,
think.
Yeah,
don't fight your opponents.
sometimes I
No.
feel like pulling their hair when they are on top, like, move. But
Yeah.
I cannot do that.
Well, Loopy, it was so incredible to meet you. Like, I mean, what a pleasure for us being Canadian for ourselves. We're a Canadian MMA podcast. And so it means so much to us when we can talk to and support Canadian fighters. It's such an honor. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Before we let you go, is there anybody that you want to say anything to or shout out?
Just like you guys, thank you for having me, and thanks everyone that has been with me since day one. There is a lot of people that they've been with me since day one, since the day that I didn't know anything, no job, no striking, nothing. So to those people, my boyfriend, he's always there to do my weight cuts, my diet, my strength and conditioning. So yeah, I'm just really, everyone that is with me, like, it's just, I have a huge team and all over the world, actually, that care and loves me, and I can feel it. And I just, want to say thank you.
That's awesome, Loopy. Well, thank you so much. Prince, I'll let you say goodbye.
I'll take care, Loopy. And also, don't forget Freddie. Like, Freddie doesn't get any mention. Also, like, Freddie should get a mention as well, too, right? Like,
He's in there. Mostly he make me more work than anything, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah, that's okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Loopy. We are going to be cheering for you like crazy when you fight the trilogy fight on October 9th. We know you will win. We will be cheering you on, and we'll be supporting you all along the way throughout your career.
Thank you very much, guys. Have a
Thank
good
you.
day.
Take care. Bye-bye. All right. Wow. What an amazing opportunity for us, right? To speak to one of Canada's greatest, we said it in the intro, one of Canada's greatest opportunities for gold. Man, Prince, this strawweight division is open, right? It is full of killers, but Loopy is a killer herself. And I'm telling you, just watch out for great things for her. She's amazing.
Absolutely, yeah. And you guys, again, if you guys are listening, you can listen to this podcast via Spotify. Follow us on Instagram, Fight Inside Podcast, and you can watch this video on YouTube at Fight Inside Podcast. Follow and subscribe. That was an amazing interview, Tim. Yeah, great future for her. Right?
I know. And I do want to take an opportunity to shout out and say thank you to our friends over at Midday Squares. I know you mentioned them at the beginning of the podcast, so you'll see Prince and I eating these from now on during the podcast. Midday Squares are the world's first functional chocolate bars. They're everything that a chocolate bar isn't and everything that a protein bar wishes that they could be. So it's a great balance. They taste amazing. They fuel you. They satisfy your hunger throughout the day. If you'd like to try them, and I really do suggest you do, give them a shout. Use the link in our show notes, or visit middaysquares.com and use code FIGHTINSIGHT15 for 15% off your first order. Give them a try. We really appreciate it, and it helps support the podcast as well. So just wanted to say thank you to Midday Squares.
Yeah, Tim, this thing is amazing, man. Like, this is so good.
You got to wipe your teeth. What are you doing? It's a mess.
Is it?
It's fine. It's fine. All right. So with the podcast, Prince, what we do want to talk about today, what is it that we were going to talk about? We were going to talk about fighter pay. I kind of want to bring up that. Fighter pay. We talk about this on and off all the time. You always talk about how I fight with people on the internet about things. This is one thing that I'm always fighting, with people. So let's just bring it up here. There's a couple of pictures I want to show. So here's from our good buddy Dana Krabs online. Oh, this banner here is in the way. But this is the kind of thing that you see a lot. Dana pay being a massive amount, and then the fighter pay is a little tiny amount, right? So that's a funny one there. But, recently Jared Cannonier, and this is maybe what we could talk about. Jared Cannonier said that for his UFC debut in 2015, he had to organize a GoFundMe for $5,000 to help him pay for his 2-month training camp in Arizona. He took 2 months vacation from his job in Alaska. 37 people helped raise $6,100 for him. And so he posts that, and then people jump on that as if it's a bad thing, like, oh, why should these fighters have to set up a GoFundMe for their fights and stuff like that? let me go to you, Prince, first. What do you think about this whole argument about fighter pay? We're not talking about the John Jones 10 million stuff. We're just talking about when fighters here at the entry level are getting GoFundMes or things like that. What do you think about that?
You know what people don't realize is like, in order to be in a fight camp, like it costs money, like to pay your fighters, the facility, your diet, all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Just to get to prepare for a fight, right? And so, I mean, it costs money. I need to take time off of work, and in order for you to focus, you need to completely put your concentration onto this. And so, I mean, for me, it would be like, listen, these guys like MMA, like it's not like boxing. Like you've got to worry about it's a whole different ball game. Like you've got kicks, submissions, all these things to worry about, and then they're getting paid bare minimum. So, I honestly. They should be. I honestly think they should get paid. A little bit of a pay increase in terms of in terms of money to show up, money to even the purses, even the bonuses. They should get a little bit more, right? Just because of all the things that they need to get through to get to where they are, right? And so, and on top of that, some of the injuries that you're seeing in UFC, like, come on, Tim, like broken legs, right?
Yeah.
And all this stuff. So I mean, there's so much dangers that's associated with it. I just feel like they should, be at least somewhere close up there with like boxing money. You know what I mean? So,
but who boxing money? So people make that argument. Are you talking about the top tier guys, like UFC top tier should be equal to boxing top tier? Because I don't know how much low level, like what did the guy make who was the entry level fight on the undercard of the Jake Paul fight make? You know what I mean? Like we don't know what those guys make. I don't know.
So I know. Okay, so I think I saw somewhere around, is it 300,000 to 500 somewhere underneath Jake Paul, because Jake Paul.
Okay, but that's the co-main,
right? Yes, the co-main. Yeah.
Okay, not talking the co-main. Talking. We're talking. I want to focus on Cannonier's talking about his very first fight in the UFC.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about that guy. The guy who's making their first fight in the UFC, and they're complaining that those guys aren't getting paid more. Let me go at it in a different way. Here's another shot, and this is from MMAJunkie.com. This was regarding Cheyenne Buys, and I apologize if the name is wrong, but she won the performance of the night on her second fight in the UFC. And she was like breaking down, crying at how much that 50,000 meant to her. Of course, 50,000 means a lot to everybody. But she was saying how like she was broke and all that. And when questioning Dana, he replies, look, she's 1-1 in the UFC and she's made what, $80,000 in the last 6 months. This is one of those sports where you have to win. If you win, everything's good. If you lose, everything's bad. I do kind of appreciate that
honesty
aspect and honesty of it, right? And I think we go back to our podcast with Ashley Evans Smith, where she said that Dana says that this sport is not a career, it's an opportunity. Like this sport is not meant to set you up for the rest of your life. I think Cannonier goes on later to talk about, he was on an interview here. He's on this interview with the MMA Hour with Ariel Helwani. And he was saying, I should have hundreds of thousands, 100,000 or more, $100,000 in my bank account just sitting there. That's how I should be. And it's like, hey, buddy, who has $100,000 sitting in their bank account? Like, I get that he's an athlete and all that, but I feel like sometimes people's perception of what money should be earned is a little bit off. And I think, like, if you're essentially you're an amateur turning pro, or you're a young pro getting into the UFC. I mean, I don't know how much money you've had or what job you have, but to set up a GoFundMe, you were doing that because you wanted to quit your job, right? Not earn any money and just 24/7 train. And I get it. And I get that you need to do that to become Jared Cannonier, right? That we know now. But I don't know whose fault that is. Like, everybody has to kind of sacrifice to become what you want to be. Like, sometimes there's sacrifices that have to be made. And when it comes to money, yeah. And to that Cheyenne Buys, like, I don't know what her contract is or whatever, but yeah, when you start out, you're making a little bit of money, and hopefully you win and you get those bonuses, and hopefully you get a performance of the night, which I know is, you can't bank on that, but there's money to be had. But I don't know that it's like, I feel bad sometimes for Dana White, like I feel bad that he gets hit, because he's like, wait a second, this, some of the fighters, they'll only fight 2 or 3 times a year. How much money am I supposed to pay them? And then, some of the undercards, you're not the ones bringing in the people. So any money that he can get, I don't know. It's really tough.
Yeah, well, okay. I mean, you could look at it that way too. I mean, that's another perspective of it, right? I mean, you need to know what you're getting yourself into, right? But yeah, actually, just to talk about people that started from next to nothing. I mean, you got Connor, who was like on welfare at one point. You got Francis. You got Oliveira from, like, he was growing up in the favelas. Like, I mean, just trying to make it out, and look how far they've come, right? And so, I mean, a lot of people see this and they're like, oh man, I want to do the same thing. But man, the sacrifices that those guys had to go through, especially with Francis too, like leaving different countries and trying to learn a different language, it was huge, right? So, yeah, well, I wonder if, like, you can't even go to, like, there's like no actual union that like says, okay, everybody should, this is the standard for everybody. Bellator, see, everyone should be making this X amount, right? And so, that's why people switch over different organizations, just because of the incentives that they make, right? So
sure, you go where you think you can make more money. I mean, there's been fighters that have said, hey, it's better for me to go to Bellator. Mm-hmm. I can make more money in Bellator with sponsorships and things like that. But, not everybody can. And then, some fighters, I think Elise Anderson was saying that, and we interviewed Elise Anderson, if you didn't see our podcast with her, but she talked about when she got that contract from ONE FC, and she even said she went to Dana White and showed him, and he's like, hey, for that money, go. And I think it was on her Instagram, she was posting about her life. Mm-hmm. And she posted saying that it was a 6-figure contract for ONE FC. So, I mean, hey, at some point you can make it to that level. But I think that grinding, when you're at that lower level, I feel like you said, Prince, you kind of know the sport you're in, and you know the landscape. Like, you're not making a ton of money on day one. You're not everyone's going to be a Sugar Sean O'Malley or a Conor McGregor, right? Someone who's going to bring in a lot of fans and whatever. I don't know. I think it's tough. I don't like sometimes the fighters outwardly complaining about pay kind of thing. I don't know. It's just tough.
Well, you know what? I'm glad that you mentioned the Ashley Evans comment, because guys, and if you haven't seen it, our episode with Ashley Evans, it was an amazing podcast as well. You guys have to watch that. But her comment about saying, "Hey, it's being here is an opportunity, and it's not a career." Like, that was such a huge wake up call, right? Because you think, and you made it. Like, listen, I'm making millions now. I've got media coverage and all, and so. You still, while you're in there, you got to sell yourself too, right? Whether you're dyeing your hair purple, or, getting into fights during post conference, or, calling out podcasters like myself and you. There you go. Right?
I don't know. It's a tough one. I know we'll talk about this more. And as we get different, fighters making comments and things like that, I'll bring it up to us, Prince, so that we can kind of talk. But I just thought that Cannonier one was funny with the GoFundMe. And hey, look, all the power to you. I think if you're a young fighter and you have the outreach where you can set up a GoFundMe and have the public support you in that kind of manner, so that you can then focus 100% on your training, so that you can then leverage that fight into something better for yourself, why not do it, right? Like, why not let the people support you? It's the same as if you're out there selling shirts or selling merch or whatever, right? Those are all things that help support the fighters. And and I will say, Prince, and I forgot to bring this down here, damn it. For people that complain about the fighter pay, what I always say is, how many UFC shirts do you own? How many Bam Bam Barberena shirts have you bought, right? Like, how much are you supporting the fighters? Because that's where the money comes to change that, right? Like, how many of us have, Toronto Raptor jerseys or LA Laker jerseys? Where do you think all that money goes? That money eventually trickles down into player fees, player salaries, right? So The people that all complain is like, hey, take a look around your bedroom and see how much UFC paraphernalia or fighter paraphernalia have you bought. Do you tune into their podcast and buy things from their sponsors, right? All those little things are ways that you can help. So don't just sit there and say, hey, I should, Dana, you should pay people more money. I think you got to think like, okay, well, how much am I contributing? Did I buy the last pay-per-view or did I stream it? Right? Like, you got to think about those things.
We're going to go on commercial break.
Wait, what? You don't like it?
No, listen. No, but I also I wanted to, since you mentioned it, shout out to Bam Bam. Also, I have one shirt from Bam Bam.
I know, that's what I'm saying. And I buy all the pay-per-views, man. I buy the pay-per-view. So what I was saying, what I was going to bring my UFC gym shirts or my UFC branded Reebok apparel that I've been buying and stuff like that. Because at some point it kind of makes its way down. So it's a tough one, man. I don't know that it's ever going to change, but we will see.
Yep.
Prince, I do want to talk. One other thing that I wanted to bring up for today was people have been responding well when we've been talking a little bit about ourselves, to give people insight into who is Prince and Tim. How did you get started into martial arts? That's what I wanted to ask you. Like, what brought you into martial arts? People know that we met at the gym that we were training at, that we are training at, Muay Thai, boxing, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But what got you into martial arts as a person?
You know what? So I worked out of, I don't know if you guys still remember, there was Extreme Fitness. Extreme Fitness. They had that gym brand all over the place. And there was one close to Yonge and Eglinton. And I was training there, and I had a session with one of the trainers, and he's like, oh, you know what? I'll bring some gloves and we'll do some boxing. I'm like, okay, cool.
How old are you at this point?
Man, I swear.
49.
Yeah, give or take. I was, I think I was in my 20s or 21. I was,
okay.
So I got in there, and then we started training, and you know what? I liked it. I was so good. I remember buying the wraps. I'm like, holy crap, look, I got wraps.
Did you just say you were so good? Is that what you said?
Yeah, the guy said it was amazing. He was like, "Oh, you're like the next Pacquiao." I'm like, "Oh, thanks, man, from Young and Egg. Thanks." And so I started doing that, and then after that, like I stopped for a little bit, but then I'm like, man, I missed all that. I really want to get back into that martial arts and get that type of training. And then I ended up going into P4P and started training out of there. And, the rest has been history. And I've loved it since getting into Muay Thai. It's like a different type of cardio. I remember the first couple of classes, man, I was so nervous just because it's so intimidating. You got people there that's been fighting for such a long time, and you go in there and like, man, you just hope you don't mess up, right? And yeah, now it's just like, this is it. Like it's, it's one of my sports. I enjoy doing it. And and then slowly got into jiu-jitsu as well. And, not as good, but, I'm trying. But you, Tim, how did you get into martial arts? Like, how did you get into this type of sport?
I think growing up, I was always playing soccer and tennis, competitively. There wasn't a day that didn't go by that I wasn't doing one of the two sports, So I never did martial arts growing up. Obviously, as a young boy, you're always watching like, martial arts movies or, boxing movies or, Bruce Lee fights or Jackie Chan, whatever. And it wasn't until I was in university that the opportunity presented itself. UFC, okay, this is going to age me, but UFC was, it was around, right? But it wasn't like a huge thing. Mm-hmm. And when I was at university, I'd be playing the intramural sports or whatever. And then there were some signs, like my first year of university, and it said, come learn Jeet Kune Do. And I knew Jeet Kune Do was what Bruce Lee did. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, oh, maybe I should check this out. And one of my buddies in university, he was a karate. He represented Canada for karate. He was like one of the national athletes for karate. And so I said, hey, check this out. He goes, yeah, I've heard of that guy. You should go train. And I started doing the classes there. And it was a guy that had a gym elsewhere that was coming into York to kind of like find students, And the guy looked exactly like John Kreese from Karate Kid, like the bad guy sensei, like literally exactly like him, Prince. Exactly. He was so mean, man. If you were doing something like, we'd be throwing punches or whatever, he would come over and he'd go, do it again. And you would do it. And he would like grab your wrist lock you. You'd be on the ground, like tapping out. This is before people even knew what tap out meant, but I was like freaking tapping on the ground. It's like a natural reaction. Like he would have you in a thing. And he was so mean and so tough, but he was great. Rest in peace to him. His name is Dale Johns. He ran a school called Integral Combat School, ICS. And but he was a great guy, man. And I think I stayed with him for like at least 5 years it was Jeet Kune Do, knife fighting, and Eskrima. And so we did that. So we had the Filipino fighting sticks and stuff like that. Really good. And then I took a break from it for a long time. Like his gym was just too far away. Took a break from it for a long time, and then ended up, coming to the gym where I met you, and Muay Thai and whatever. And it was just because I was golfing a lot and I was getting fatter and fatter. And I was like, what the heck is happening to me? And then I decided, hey, I got to get back into it. UFC was a lot more popular back then. I was like, okay, I got to find something. And then, away it went, and then haven't stopped. And I guess that was like, I don't know, maybe 8 years ago now. It's been a long time, but did the Muay Thai heavy at the beginning, doing boxing pretty heavy. And then I took a long time where I was doing MMA, and then was doing the jiu-jitsu I did for a long time. I would kind of break it up. Like I would do a lot of Muay Thai, then I would stop and do a lot of jiu-jitsu. Like I would focus on one more than the other. And so that's kind of how I got into it. So yeah, crazy.
At one point you were teaching the MMA classes, right?
Okay. Because anyone that watches this might be like, whoa. No, it was only when like the other coaches couldn't come around. Like I knew the drills to run people through. So I would run the class here and there just to kind of help out when the coaches couldn't come. And of course, the crazy thing is, and I think I've talked about this before, but the first coach I ever had for MMA was UFC fighter Sean Pearson, right? Sean the Punisher Pearson. Yes. Man, that guy brought back bad memories of my Jeet Kune Do coach, because man, Sean was unforgiving. That dude would like punish you if you were doing bad, right? So what a good guy he is, though.
Yeah, with Sean, I just automatically do push-ups. He can't say nothing to you if you're already doing push-ups, because he's probably going to ask you to do push-ups. Might as well just do it, get ready. By the time he gets to you, I was like, oh, okay, well, you're doing it anyway, so okay. So the reason. But hopefully we'll get Sean here as well. Sean in here doing the podcast, because he'd be a great guy to interview.
Yeah, for sure, man. He was a great guy. All right, Prince, let's talk about our fight on site. Today, what we're doing is a little bit different. We're going to we always link it back to our guests. So today, in honor of the fact that Loopy represents both Canada and Mexico when she comes to the ring, we are doing the Fight on Site New Home Edition. I didn't know how to phrase this really, but I thought this was okay, right? I was going to say like adopted home or whatever, but it's for those fighters that represent more than one country. And I love that. Anytime I see that, I'm like, that's pretty cool, man, that they represent both. So I'll let you go first, Prince. And I love your guys' story, man. This is a great one.
All right, guys. So my pick for Fight On Site Home Edition, my pick is Peter Sabota. Mm-hmm. Yes. So basically, why I picked him, because he fights out of the welterweight division, and so he is Polish/German descent. And so he was always getting a lot of flack, because like, okay, so who do you side by? Are you siding with Poland, or are you siding with Germany? And he was always getting a lot of problems with that. Everyone was saying, okay, which side are you going to pick? And so at one point, he's like at UFC Hamburg, he was like, you know what? I'm not even going to pick any of the side, because he was born in Poland and raised in Germany. So at one point, he's like, you know what? Forget it. You know what? I'm not going to represent anything. I'm going to represent. Tim, I want you to try and guess which country he represented during that UFC.
I'm going to take a shot in the dark, and I'm going to say that because the UFC would not allow him to represent two country flags on his shorts, he chose to go with One Love Jamaica.
Wow, Tim, it's like you got it bang on. Wow,
smart guy right here.
Tim is looking through my Fight On Site notes, but yeah, he ended up picking Jamaica, and so Jamaica. Part of the reason why he picked it was because his dad loved Bob Marley, and he grew up listening to that, and so he loved the country, he loved the vibe, he loved what it represented. It felt like it represented him. So that's why he ended up going with that country. So he represented Jamaica. So it was actually pretty cool. He like rolled in Jamaica flag and Jamaican flag. So that's my pick. That's my pick.
Obviously I'm cheating a little bit because I knew you picked him, but I remember watching that fight, and when we came out to Jamaica, the commentators made a big point of saying that story, because I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, and it was because, they weren't going to allow him to do a half flag or whatever. Like, he had to pick one, and he's like, well, I don't want to pick one. I'm representing both. So what do I do? And so he did the thing, because you can pick no country. Right, you can pick that. Back in the Reebok days, they had that silver logo that was just kind of like a blank flag, and so you could pick that. But he didn't want to do that, so he represented Jamaica, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, that's yeah.
All right, my pick is also a nice feel good story. So my pick for the new home edition is Makwan Amir Kahani. So, do you know this guy, Prince?
No, you gotta fill me in, buddy.
Really? This guy fights out of SBG with Conor McGregor's team. He burst onto the scene with, I think it was like an 8-second KO, like a flying knee KO. And because I'm the guy that watches like the Fight Pass prelims, the prelims, and then the main card, right? So I watch a lot of these low card fights. This guy broke onto the scene, and his nickname is Mr. Finland. And when he got onto the mic, he did this amazing interview. He talked about like wanting to give his mother a home or a bed or something like that. It was really nice. And then his second fight, he did amazing. And again, he like got on the mic and said, I'd like to buy my mom a house or whatever. So it was really cool, man. The guy had very good personality and whatever. And he's a great, very likable guy. But his story is that at the age of 5 or 6, he was born in Iran. And the Iran-Iraq war was going on. And so around the age of 5 or 6, his family had to leave Iran. And through whatever means, they ended up getting into Finland. And so he grew up in Finland. And the reason his nickname is Mr. Finland is he wants to pay respect to the country that took his family in and helped raise them and helped keep them safe, or, give them a home. So he represents Finland in honor of that. And I just thought, man, that's such a cool story, what a nice guy. And he has such a good personality. So that is my pick.
Yeah, I think I've heard of that story before, just because I think there was an influx. I think there was something going on in Afghanistan at the time as well, too. The refugees coming in and out, and people coming in. And then, and I remember covering that story because he came out with the flag, and then, that's actually a really good one. Good pick, Tim.
Yeah, thank you. So, guys, for the fight on site, what we want you to do is come on over to our Instagram on Saturday, and you are going to vote for who you want to win on our fantasy matchup. So it is going to be Peter Sabata versus Makwan Amir Khani. So come on over to Fight Insight Podcast on Instagram on Saturday. Check out our story, and that's where you'll be able to pick your vote. Prince, what more do we have to say before we have to go here? Do we have anything that we wanted to say?
Okay, guys, again, another recap again. Follow us, subscribe, and YouTube at Fight Insight Podcast.
Yeah.
Instagram, Fight Insight Podcast. Follow us. Listen to us at Spotify, Fight Insight Podcast. And guys, if you want to, you guys have been actually snacking on this midday squares. It's actually really, really good. So again, if you guys want to save 15% on your first order, you guys have to just use the code FightInsight15. So FightInsight15.
There you go. All right, buddy. That was a good podcast, man. Loopy Godinez, she fights. We're recording this podcast a little bit early, but she's set to fight on October 9th. So we will release this closer to October 9th. When you're hearing this, be sure to check her out and cheer her on, man. What a great story she has. I hope it came through okay. I know there were some audio technical difficulties. I'll try to edit out a little bit here and there, but thank you so much, buddy. This was a great podcast. Everybody check out all our old podcasts. Check everything out. Right around now, you'll start to see links to things coming up. Click on some of those other videos, subscribe, do all that jazz. Thank you, Prince.
All right. Thanks, Tim.